Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that this week is kind of letting half the side down because due to life and other issues, there is only one film that we've seen in cinema this week. My name is Tosin, I am your host. I am based up in the United Kingdom in a area called Bromsgrove, is in the middle of the country. Joining me as always on the Isle of Wight are Sharon.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hi, yeah, I'm actually in Bournemouth. So I'm not.
Sean has made us almost international. Almost international. He's in Bournemouth. All right, cool. So, as I said, this week, because at least two of us have sickly family members that we need to go look after, so it's going to be a bit of a speedy one. We're going to have a straight shootout this week. Usually what we do is we go see 3 films in the cinema, 3 films at home, or 3 TV shows at home. We weigh them up and we say, where's the money been better spent this week? Now, this week, we have a straight shootout because between the 3 of us, we have seen 1 new film in the cinema this week. I think Dune is still out there doing its thing, but I think the only film that we have seen, I should say that you two have seen, is Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho. So we're going to talk about that. And Sean, you have something that you saw at home, which is...
Yes, yeah, okay. It's called City of Life and Death.
City of Life and Death. So today, Netflix vs. Cinema, to see where money was better spent this week, we have Last Night in Soho versus City of Life and Death. So, Sharon, do you want to tell us a little bit about Last Night in Soho? What is this about? We know it's Edgar Wright's latest movie. I heard it's the first time he's going out into full all-out horror and going away from his comedy roots. But what is this about?
Yeah, it starts off with a young student who goes to London for the first time. She's brought up and raised in Cornwall. She's raised by her gran, and she's became not obsessed, but she became inspired by a period in the 60s where her mum and her gran just had the best time. As 60s in London. So her musical influences, her fashion influences are all inspired by London, the swinging 60s in London. And so she heads to London to go to design, fashion and design university college. And there she because she's a bit of a loner, she's got a bit of a strange past. She doesn't get on living in the digs. So she goes and gets a bedsit for herself in the middle of Soho. And then she starts to basically encounter some strange things. In her dreams, she meets this young woman, and they more or less they almost coexist, where her waking moment is filled with this character who inhabits her dreams as well. And she gets drawn into this life of the sordid side of 60s in the London in the 60s. So it might start off with going to London to fulfill your ambitions of being the next Cilla Black and dancing in the Café du Paris and having this wonderful life with the swinging 60s, and then being dragged into a life of vice. And as you see our character in the past, her life deteriorates into this sort of vice-ridden nightmare. So our protagonist in the current, her life is being dragged into a nightmare because she's sucked into this alternative existence.
Ooh.
And things become a little bit undone for her, and things start to happen that blurs the line between what does she dream and what is real, and what is imagined and what is actually reality.
Timey-wimey, wishy-squishy.
Yes.
All right, cool. So now, okay, just from that, I think Sharon is essentially the queen of synopses.
100%.
When it comes to this thing, Sharon is the queen of synopses. She's nice, she's succinct. She's like, yeah, that's it. That's what this film's about. And Sean is the king of reactions. But essentially, from what you said about that, Sharon, that sounds to me like, Sean, it sounds a little bit up your street. Was it a little bit up your street?
Yeah, I've actually gone and seen this one again. So I totally loved it. I was totally immersed in it, totally 100%. I was there. I was in that world, and that hasn't happened for a long time since I've been at the cinema. So I mean, and I'm still thinking about it now, and I'm glad I went to see it a second time. I'm probably going to go see this one a third time. I love this film. It's just I think it's the best thing I've seen this year, definitely, possibly within the last 5 years, this is probably the best film I've seen.
Good stuff.
I loved it. I loved the atmosphere. I soaked it up. The soundtrack was absolutely terrific. I thought the acting was great. I really did think it was, because when I saw the trailer for this, I thought, I wasn't too sure on who's the actress who plays the Cornish girl.
Thomasin McKenzie.
I should know that.
Was she in St. Maud? Was she the one in St. Maud? I couldn't remember.
No, she isn't in St. Maud. St. Maud is somebody else. But no, she's the one in
Jojo Rabbit and no.
Yeah, she's in Jojo. Leave No Trace.
Leave No Trace. Yeah, that's it.
That's
when I first came across it. So and I just thought, because I mean, in Jojo Rabbit, it didn't convinced me to a huge amount, but I thought she nailed this part. For me personally, I thought she was absolutely brilliant in the part. She convinced me so convincing. I love this movie. Totally
Okay. So Sean, with your whole pronouncement of this possibly in the best film you've seen in the last 5 years in the cinema, now Sean has you love making lists, so you love ranking things, and you have a running list of your best films ever, and somewhere in the top 3 there's I know there's Assault on Precinct 13, there's 71, there's Fury. So Assault on Precinct 13, 71, Fury, and now I'm going to throw Last Night in Soho there. Where would you juggle those in with those films? I know it's really recent, but hey, I'm putting you on the spot.
The Wild Bunch is probably my top one, but that would have
how did I forget about the Wild Bunch?
That would have to. That would probably trying to think now. That probably would be near 71. So I'd have to. It would be like, I don't know, but
okay.
Yeah. So no, it's high. This is high. This is really, really high on my list. I totally sunk down into my chair and was absolutely.
And mesmerized. You were there.
I was there. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So, Sharon, how about you? What were your reactions to this film? What did you think?
No, I thought it was, classy. I thought it told the story really well, where it does sort of blur that line between reality and nightmare, and is it mental health? Is it real? Is it just a sort of like a psychedelic dream? So I thought it fit the mood really well. I thought it genuinely had some shocks and some twists in it that both of us discussed this at the end of the film. We didn't see coming. And normally most of these films, I think what makes a big difference is the filmmaker loves film. So he knows the things we go, like you're signposting, we know. If you watch films, you can see the end coming.
It's like, that soldier's just pictured a picture of his lovely girl back home. We know what's coming.
You know that's happening there. And even though they had a bit like I'm going to introduce this one item that may become relevant later, like the typical, but they didn't signpost it. So I was thinking, that might come into effect later on. But again, normally these things are completely signposted. But if you know cinema, then I think, as Edgar Wright does, then he knows to avoid those things. So you do get a genuine twist at the end that neither of us had predicted. And I think that's probably why we both probably rated it really highly, because it wasn't conventional in that way that what's going to happen.
Okay, you see what's going to happen now is I'm going to go see this film, and I'm going to be like, okay, what don't I expect to happen? Okay, that's what's going to happen, and I'm going to spend the whole film second guessing myself and not even enjoying it, because I'm going to try and be that smartass. I'm going to try and be that smartass who figured it out.
Yeah, so there were some really good moments, and I think there's probably one of those ones that if you watched it again, or if you had it on, like, you freeze certain frames and because there's lots of information is thrown at you at one point, and then it mirrors something that's going on in the scene, but I can't tell you any spoilers. But then you're thinking, actually, each sort of trigger point matches what you see. So there's like, you see something, and then there's a reaction. You see something else, and there's another thing happens, and you think they are linked. And the more you read, or because there's a bit of text, and you think, actually, it's connected. It's not disconnected. It's not a random event that's happening. It's connected to exactly what you're seeing. And so there's some really clever stuff. There's really good stuff. But I think the way they evoke the 60s was just spot on. I mean, didn't live there, and I wasn't before my time. But that means nothing.
That's like you imagine, isn't it? It's just
felt right, and you felt like there was alongside this gloss, there was this tarnish.
We're talking about evoking the 60s. Okay, I've only seen the trailer for this film, but there is this one shot with a massive marquee billboard of Thunderball. With the Sean Connery James Bond film, and you look at it and go, yeah, that does look like another world. That looks like another time. It looks it feels. All right, cool. So with that, okay, people have called this a horror movie. How much of a horror is it, do you think?
I don't think it. I wouldn't really class it as a horror.
I didn't think it was horror.
I didn't think it was horror.
Right.
There are horror elements in it, certainly.
Yeah, certainly were. But I wouldn't call this a horror in the conventional sense of like, you know.
But yeah, referencing St. Maud I mentioned earlier, I didn't think that was a horror film either.
No.
So people use the term horror because there's things that might be alarming, might be distressing, or might be sort of like triggers for some people.
Yeah.
So I would say it's horrific in its content in places, but it's not, to me, it wasn't horror.
I think that was Morfydd Clark. I think St. Maud was Morfydd Clark.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to. Okay, so we get to the main thing. How many stars are we looking at?
Okay, well, I think it's pretty certain what I'm going to give it. There is one bit in it that could knock it down, but I'm going to overlook it. So I'm going. This is a 5-star for me. It's got to be. I've thought about it a lot, and I'm going to give this one a top marks.
Go for it, Sean. Why live your life with a break on? So, Sharon, how many stars?
Yeah, I'm torn between a 4 or a 5 because, you know, my assessment of it is like, is it flawless? I'm trying to think. There are no holes in it. So if on that definition has been like, you know, without flaw, I'd probably be like Craig Revel Horwood. Without being able to spot a flaw, I've got no choice but to give it a top mark. So I probably would say, yeah, I'd probably have to give it a I'm tempted. I want to say like.
I'll give you a big hug, big
because
hug.
I think it's an admirable film, but it's not a film that I probably would watch again because, you know, I've had that experience of it.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, my favourite films where I go all warm and fuzzy about, I probably have a softer edge to them. So I didn't respond emotionally to it the way I would my favourite films, but I certainly there's so much to admire. So, but I think I'll probably just bite the bullet and say because I found it just such a very, very good piece of filmmaking that I'll have to give it a 5.
Whoa! Look at that! Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright.
Well, get there, but I got there.
Bring in harmony to the Netflix for Cinema podcast, and also making us realize that, and I never realized before that Sharon is our own version of Craig Revel Horwood. I never thought that Sharon is the meanie. Sharon's the stingy one who doesn't want to give out stars.
Because he always says he starts off with a perfect 10 and then he like removes points for every fault that he sees.
Yeah.
And I'm the same, really. I think I want this film to be really, really good. And then as you start into it, you're thinking, no, that loses a point because it's not original, or that loses a point because it just doesn't convince, or that loses a point because it's just.
Well, you see, I tend to go in. I tend to go in feeling like, well, you know what? I'm expecting this to be rubbish, and then when I come on, I'm like, oh my god, it wasn't. I'm going to give it 4. Like Sonic the Hedgehog. That's still one of the biggest surprises of my.
Yeah, I enjoyed Sonic.
In the last 5 years, when it comes to my film watching, it's one of the biggest surprises. I was not expecting that to be that good, and a little bit probably with Free Guy, but I mean definitely Sonic is probably the biggest surprise I've seen in the cinema in the last 3 years. Right? Okay, cool. Thank you. So that is a big. Oh my god. Okay, Sean, this House of Life and Death thing that you saw has its work cut out for it for there to be anything other but a cinema win this week. So what did you see this on?
Okay, well, this was. You know, I've been watching those like I did Invincible.
So in the last 2 weeks, you had a Russian World War II movie and an Estonian World War II movie.
Okay, well, this is
which Eastern European country are we going to today?
Well, it's not European. This is a Chinese film. A Chinese film. So,
even further east.
Yeah, this is a Chinese film, and it's shot in black and white, and it is about Nanking, where there was this was a really, really horrible place in the war. It was called the Rape of Nanking, really. So basically,
Now that I've heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the rape of Nanking. So basically, it starts off. There's a big battle between the Japanese and the Chinese in this city, and anyway, the Japanese gradually take it over, and you've got like they say find any Chinese soldiers going to kill him and that. But there's this international mission with a German who's I mean, he's a Nazi. He's got the German badge and all that, but this is almost like should we say a Chinese Schindler's List.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah. So so basically there's this compound and he takes in a lot of, but the Japanese, that they've got all the Chinese soldiers, and obviously they execute them at certain places. They take them out. It's quite brutal. And there's sorry, I just messaged there. The Japanese thing. He goes in there, and the Nazi guy's saying, look, this is a compound, all that. And he says, well, you've got to give up 200 women, otherwise we're going to come in and take them anyway. So,
oh wow. So
they have this. So he says, I can't do nothing. They have to take these 200. So they get some volunteers, obviously, and the volunteers have to go. And then there's a lot of sort of subplots and things, and then he gets a recall from Germany, and he says, I've been called back, because he's making trouble for the Japanese, and the Japanese aren't, and they obviously want to get in the compound too, because there's still Chinese soldiers. And so these women are used as comfort women, and they obviously die. So
it's just that phrase. That phrase
there's
is
nothing
horrid.
comforting about that phrase.
That phrase.
What was really interesting what was really, really interesting in this film, and I'm surprised because it's a Chinese film, there are some Japanese people with conscience. Hence, that's where this city of love and city of life and death comes, because this Japanese soldier, he goes to one of these Chinese ladies, one of these comfort women, and he really, really likes her, and he tries to help her, and he's got a real and he sees all this horrible stuff going on, and it's just there's nothing he can do, really. There's nothing he can do. But it's one of the few times when you say it was sort of, this movie was saying, yeah, the Japanese were cruel, horrible, nasty in the Second World War. Obviously not now, but there still were some with consciousness that did. They weren't all. There were people that were like, oh my God, what's going on here? So it's pretty brutal in places. After this, I sort of looked up online and I researched in that, and there's basically shots of Nanking. There's one bit where they've got a cart full of dead people. Sounds morbid, doesn't it? And there's an actual. Yeah, it's actually like a shot from. There's an actual shot. It's like shot for shot.
Like a picture, yeah.
Yeah, like a picture with like shoot firing squads and yeah. So I mean, I thought it was terrifically made. It was really, really well made. I think this. I've seen another film by the director of this. It was called The Assembly, and basically it's in the Korean War. Yeah. And they go into North Korea, and it's quite funny. They go past some Americans, and the bloke says, obviously subtitle says, try and talk Korean, and they wave. They're Chinese, but they wave at the Americans. Americans sort of wave back. But anyway, so basically it's just like a Schindler's List but it's quite brutal in places. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, really, really interesting. It was almost like almost documentary. It wasn't, but it was almost documentary. Yeah. It reminded me a little bit like the Battle of Algiers. So yeah, it was a top movie. It was a really, really good movie. I've seen a lot of others as well. I've seen.
So how many stars? How many stars for City of Life and Death get?
4 star. 4 star.
4 star for City of Life and Death. Yeah. But this, it sounds like.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
It sounds like you've had enough of a good experience for you to now say, that's it. From now on, I'm going to continue my exploration of non-English cinema.
I have seen a couple of others. I watched the Korean. I've watched a lot. I watched a Korean one called Battleship Island. Mm-hmm. I watched. I'm going to watch a Danish one next. I think.
Well, Sean, if you keep this up, you're going to become like other language expert.
Internationalist, yeah.
Yeah, we'll be like, so Sean, this person's saying this to me in Dutch. Is it actually true? And Sean will be like, oh, yeah, that sounds right. I heard that exact same phrase in that film one time.
Funny you should say that, because there's I did see, I forgot what it was called. It was a Netflix one. It was rated quite high. It's about like the Dutch resistance. So.
All right. Okay. Cool. Well, okay. So as we said, that is all we have time for today, because we have to go look after poorly family members. But I think it is I think when it came out from the second Sharon started umming and ahhing and fighting and having a crisis of conscience as to whether to give Last Night in Soho 4 or 5, we knew who had won this week. We knew who had won this week. So this week, it should come as no surprise to you that actually, I'll do what I usually do. I'll ask. So Sharon, Sean, who do you think has won this week?
Even with my mathematical skills, I think I might work out that 5 is higher than a 4.
Yeah.
So I would go with, on that basis, I would go with cinema.
Cinema. So well done, Edgar Wright. It seems like the wait that we had to wait for Last Night in Soho to be released was totally worth it. It would seem that was the case. So because this is one of those that has, obviously with pandemic, as everything has gone has been held up. So until next week, when I think we shall see the Eternals, I might try and be a hero and see maybe 2 films in a week at the cinema. But spoiler alert, one of them will be Last Night in Soho. And
well, I'm going to. That'd be good for you to see that. Well, I'm going to watch tonight. I'm going to go and watch Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires.
What?
I know. I know nothing about this, but I was looking at it, and apparently it's like an 80. It's an animated film. It's an animated film. So.
Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires.
Night of the Trampires, yeah. Yeah, so it's an 18, so is it an 18 or was it a fit? Yeah, no, it's an
18, okay.
With a name like that, I would mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so until next week.
Characters will dictate whether I can see any film this week, but we'll see.
I don't know if you can see that, can you?
No, not that well. No, not that well. All right. So okay. Until next week, when I think we shall. At least one of us would have seen the Eternals.
Yeah.
I think one of us would have seen the Eternals. Until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for joining us.